Welcome to the Journey to Happy podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you in the process of getting out of your own way and letting go of the mental barriers that have been self-created that stand on the way of you and the emotional freedom and happiness that you so desire. I am Olga, your host, and in here I'm going to offer you raw but real examples that will help you step into the shoes of becoming the CEO of your own life. Because let's face it, in a world where you can be anyone you want, why not promote yourself to the CEO position? I cannot wait to see you inside. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Journey to Happy podcast. I am very excited today. I'm interviewing somebody with whom I've worked closely because many of my coaching clients see her as well. And I have personally witnessed the transformation that can come to somebody's mental health and overall well-being when they're holistically approaching their mind and their body together and jointly. Joining me in the podcast today is Danika Sicard, who is a naturopathic doctor. She's the owner of the Orleans Naturopath Clinic. She has an undergrad degree in human kinetics. She is a mother of three, a wife, and she runs this clinic on a full-time basis. So definitely a busy mom, a busy professional that I am incredibly thankful is taking the time today to share with us some of her knowledge and expertise, specifically in autoimmune conditions, fertility, pain management, digestive problems, and stress management. So thank you so much, Danika. I am so happy. You and I met, I'm going to say like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I had first opened my clinic, and we started just collaborating and working with both of our populations, jointly understanding that you brought something to the table that I didn't bring, and that I brought something to the table that you didn't bring. And I can say from the clients that I've seen that you see, I've seen like really positive transformations. And so I definitely wanted to have you in the podcast to share with us some of what you do with these clients, and obviously your passion. I know that you do acupuncture regularly as part of your practice, so I would love to dive into that in a moment. But for now, just welcome. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. And over the years, I think we've done a good job at offering our patients and clients some great interdisciplinary, we've given them some good health recommendations as a whole. So I think that we've worked well together. So I'm glad that you've been part of my network. That's for sure.
You're part of the team. I was just telling you before we started recording that the women who having coached for me the longest, they understand that I operate based on a team. And I personally have a team of professionals around my well-being. And I encourage people to do the same, because one person cannot do it all. And we all have different expertise. And we as humans have so many different needs. So the more, the better. Mm-hmm. So let's start with your personal interest. Like, what brought you into this field of becoming a naturopathic doctor, and specifically the specialty you have in autoimmune conditions?
The fact of becoming a naturopathic doctor, I think it stemmed originally from wanting to go into something that offered nutrition, but I also loved the more physical aspect of it. So some sort of physical medicine. And I think that's where the acupuncture came in. Then I found a program that actually had all of it and then more. So that's where naturopathic medicine came into it for me. For autoimmune conditions, honestly, when I first started my career, I actually shied away from it because it was so complicated, so complex. And, I felt like I needed to, understand it more. But it actually hit home when one of my daughters, who's now 7, she was diagnosed when she was 3 with juvenile arthritis. So it was kind of like right in front of me. I really had to deal with it. I had to learn about it. So that's kind of when I started to do a lot more research, and then I also ended up taking the autoimmune paleo coaching program so that, I could learn about it myself, so I could help my daughter, but also so I could help my patients. I found there was a huge gap between what the medical, let's say her rheumatologist was offering and what could be offered naturally. Here I am, an expert in natural medicine, yet I felt like I was missing some tools. So I had to bridge that gap. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do over the years, is bridge that gap between the conventional medicine and the natural world, so that patients don't need to choose one or the other. They could choose both. And so that's kind of, that's the approach that I usually take. And, in the center of it is really improving their quality of life. What will improve that patient's quality of life? If it's a mix of medications and natural, solutions, perfect. If it's only medication, no problem. If it's only natural, great, So it really comes down to what the patient needs.
I love that approach. I always say this jokingly, but it's the truth. Like, my life was saved by like traditional medicine, and I almost had a needed surgery and they saved my life. But on a regular basis, my body really likes the holistic, natural approach to things. My body doesn't respond too well to traditional medications and stuff like that. My body really loves homeopathic and responds so well to that. But, I wouldn't be a mom today if it wasn't for like hardcore medicine interventions as well. So I have come to dance the dance of having these both approaches. And I really appreciate it, because I think it's so easy to just be from one school of thinking and then ignore the other one, when our needs are so unique and we might need a little bit of both. I see this a lot with my clients who may be struggling with mental health conditions, and they feel so close off to taking any medication at all, but they'll be more open to the natural way. And at times that's all they need, the natural way, but sometimes they need both. And I do think that making that distinction and understanding that holistic means a little bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes when you're using both therapies, you actually need a lower dose of the medication, or you don't need to take it as frequently. So you're taking a lower dose because you're addressing other aspects of your life that need to be addressed. So yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Mm-hmm.
So looking at autoimmune disease, this became very important to me throughout my years trying to conceive. I never knew I was an undiagnosed celiac person walking around life like nothing happened. And this, in the end, is the only sort of answer we have to why I was having a hard time conceiving. From all the millions of testing we got done, this is sort of like the only thing. And it brought my attention to something that I'm sure you struggle with your daughter having arthritis, juvenile arthritis, which is inflammation in the body, and what that does, and how like I personally can tell you I neglected this for forever. I knew I was like bloated, but I'll be like, oh, well, it happens to everybody. This is nothing to be worried about. And the difference I felt in my mind, in my body, in my mental health, the moment inflammation was managed better. So what do we tell our listeners that are going through this thinking, maybe I have an autoimmune, maybe they don't? And most people, I think most people walk around, thankfully, without one. But if somebody's listening to us thinking like, how do I know if I have one? Why would I take the time to identify one? What you as a practitioner in this field, when I come to see you, and this is in the background of your mind, right? Like, that autoimmunes are things that have conditions that are there. What are some of the steps you take with a patient to understand if this might be in fact something worth analyzing? Because I had symptoms about every doctor, and I don't think anybody had suggested to look at celiac, for example.
Right. So you're right. It's not usually the first step I jump into. So usually in the case history, I often ask, are there any autoimmune conditions in the family? So let's say, close family, someone has an autoimmune condition, you are genetically predisposed to an autoimmune condition right there. Otherwise, if this person has seen many specialists, seen their doctor, done blood work, they're not feeling well at all, and everything seems normal on paper, then usually I'll investigate a little further and say, okay, well, maybe this is an autoimmune condition and we need to, so we do blood. I usually do blood work. There's some, specific autoimmune panels you could do. You could check inflammation, check for nutrient deficiencies, because we'll often see some nutrient deficiencies with people with autoimmune conditions. The two main ones are vitamin D and iron. So, so those are usually what I look into. And so if someone is listening and, they're wondering if they are, a good candidate to get checked, well, speak to someone, speak to your naturopathic doctor, speak to your doctor and say it is a concern of yours and, why they've kind of already ruled it out or never checked it out before. Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's talk about inflammation for a moment. What is the impact of a body being under chronic inflammation? What are some of the symptoms of inflammation? Because I think of being bloated, but then I look back at photos and my eyes were puffy. There's so many other, and that's visibly, but I'm sure there's symptoms that are not even noticeable to the eye, where there's inflammation in the body and what that can cause.
Right. So research is finding that inflammation is at the basis of most diseases. It'll affect your brain. It'll affect your cardiovascular system. It'll cause water retention, like you were saying, puffy eyes, feeling like your joints or you're stiff, your hands are puffy, or you have water retention in your ankles. There's such a thing as neuroinflammation that could definitely affect your mood. We will, the most obvious when people say inflammation, we think of joint pain, right? So yes, that's an obvious one. Then there's the digestive one, where the bloating, the maldigestion of everything, the gastritis, like that irritation in the stomach. So these are all, signs of inflammation that you can look for.
And so somebody is listening to us and thinking like, crap, that might be me, and I really love the neuroinflammation, because this one I became aware of in the last few years, and I've seen it play out with my clients. I've seen it play out with myself. And it is this feeling of the brain in fire and an urgency to heal, but we don't understand that urgency as an urgency to heal. It might translate into not thinking clearly, or anxiety, or some other manifestation of being at risk in some way, where your body is saying like, do something. What is your go-to healing tools to reduce inflammation? So if I come to you with all these symptoms, you're suspecting I may have inflammation in the body. You might do blood to confirm it. It says, yes, I've got inflammation. Where do you send me? What do you do?
Well, so we definitely take a look at, the foundation of health, your diet. What are you putting into your body? So we want to focus on eliminating foods that may be causing inflammation. One of the big ones could be grains in general. Grains like, when your breads, your pastas, your crackers, cereal. And for some, it might be more dairy. Dairy can cause a lot of inflammation in people. And then there's the nightshades. So these are certain vegetables that may cause inflammation in the body. I often go to certain nutrients as well, or natural products like curcumin, a fish oil with a high dose of EPA, which is a specific ingredient that helps to target inflammation. And, things like boswellia, you could do ginger. So some of these nutrients to help fight inflammation. But to get to the root of it, it's trying to find what's causing this inflammation, right? Is it an infection? Sometimes we have a low grade infection, like a chronic infection. Otherwise, it may be an acute infection that's causing this. So that infection needs to be addressed. Is it our lifestyle? Are we overtraining? And this is causing inflammation in the body, perhaps. So that's also something that would be worth looking into.
You have like the job of an investigator. Somebody comes to you with symptoms and you're like, hold on, it could be a million things. So we're going to try to, take things, break them down, which brings me to how long does it usually take to work with you? So if I'm coming in thinking like some of my clients might come to you, Olga told me to go see you. I don't know why I'm here, but help. So how long does that work usually takes once you figured out what this person, might need help with? Like, what does that look like from beginning to end?
So usually someone comes in for an initial consult, which is a little longer. We take full case history. I might send this person for blood work just to see, is there some autoimmune component going on? And I make recommendations off the first visit where I'll recommend some dietary changes or even a diet diary. Let's see what is actually, what you're actually eating. Let's try and get a better overview of your lifestyle, how are you sleeping and your exercise pattern. And then, from there, I'll recommend some changes so that at the second appointment, which is usually 6 to 8 weeks later, I want to see an improvement. It doesn't mean everything's going to be 100% better, but just some improvement that then, okay, what's next? And, some sort of long-term plan too. So when it comes to autoimmune conditions, it's not about finding a cure. It's about managing that condition. It's about putting it into remission and keeping it there. Doesn't mean that this person will never flare, but if they do flare, they'll know that they can get back into remission and they'll have all the tools they need to get back there. It will be about addressing diet, sleep, exercise, making sure there's no hormone imbalances, nutrient deficiencies. And usually I'd say within a few months, we can definitely get to feeling better. But it'll be a work in progress for sure, with bumps along the way, but usually there's improvement. You can see that quality of life improving and which is really encouraging for someone who's been in a flare for so long.
Yeah. And I think back of, I had done for those who don't know, celiac, it's a severe intolerance, I would say, to gluten. And for most of my life, I was treating eczema and I was treating, all these other conditions that now, I don't have them because I'm no longer eating the irritants, the thing that was causing it. And I would just go back to thinking always oh, you know what? It's just a phase, I'm just maybe too stressed. Maybe this is normal, and normalizes very uncomfortable symptoms that now that I don't have them, is whoa, how did I even go through this moments of life feeling at a 50% functioning when I had this potential.
Right.
It's crazy to me that I normalized this to such degree that that was my normal. This is how I live life,
Yeah, it's trying to put kind of Band-Aids on all the little symptoms when they were just it's your body telling you something isn't right. And oftentimes looking at the picture of all the symptoms, they have one root cause. And so it's about, getting down to that.
I was 35 when I was diagnosed with this, and if it wasn't for 4 years of infertility and trying everything on earth to figure it out, and that I did a genetic testing through 23andMe. That's what told us. That's what told us I had the gene. And they were like, let's look into this. And so we knew like the high number of unexplained infertility and undiagnosed celiac, for example.
And when it comes to infertility, that's a big one. If it's been years, sometimes I'll put people on an autoimmune program for their fertility case. And, you're right. Even things like I've seen PCOS be what we call comorbidity of autoimmune conditions. And PCOS is at the forefront of their symptom, their case. I have PCOS. Okay, but maybe you have something more than that that's autoimmune. So that for me would be potentially a symptom, that hormonal imbalance. For me, I'm looking at it, okay, not sure this is your full picture. Same for some people who have really, really bad eczema on their hands. I'll always look at vitamin D deficiency, iron deficiency, but I look at the thyroid. So for thyroid antibodies, a lot of people, especially women, will have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so an autoimmune thyroid condition, and they're constantly just trying to treat their eczema, like you were.
Yeah. Since I was a kid, I remember my mom cutting out like my going to see I had horses growing up, and they were like, "Oh, you're allergic to horses. Buy horses. You're allergic to stuffed animals. We can't have dust." All along, it was the gluten that I was responding to, and I have zero eczema. Like it's no longer a thing in my life, which I cannot even.
Wow.
Since I was born, I had eczema.
Yeah.
We didn't know. So this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about holistic medical approaches, because I have personally experienced what it feels like to be on the right supplements of the right amount and to, have answers to questions and get to the core of the core root of some of the symptoms we have. And the one thing that being under a holistic healthcare approach myself has taught me is that nothing happens in isolation, right? Like we're these complex beings. And like, if I have a constant headache, I may just want to look at hydration or like, what else is happening? What am I smelling? Are there smells in my house? Like, things that, and so for listeners, I'm thinking, what will be your 5 top recommendations that you give to people when they're sort of like taking health in their own hands and they're looking at like, what are some of the steps I should be taking to holistically look at my body and my mind as one complex organism? And obviously, other than going to see a naturopathic doctor, which I really do suggest people to go do, what are some of the things that we as individuals can kind of take on our own hands to holistically treat our bodies?
So basically, I guess, my top 5 would be to look at your gut health. Everything from, our immune system really, we have so many immune cells in our gut that it's really important that we're digesting properly, that we're absorbing our nutrients. So looking at gut health, making sure that what you're putting in your body is healthy, not processed foods full of sugar. And also if you have an infection in your gut, that should be treated, especially if you're predisposed to an autoimmune condition, because any sort of infection can trigger that gene to turn on. So avoiding those food reactions as well. If, for you, it was gluten. The other one would be quality of sleep. We hear about it all the time, but really taking it seriously, making sure you're going to bed at a decent time and that you're able to fall asleep and stay asleep, and that you're getting anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. With autoimmune conditions, you'll see that getting more towards the at least 8 to maybe even 10 for some will be important. And then moving your body, not overtraining, but more gentle, moderate exercises. Certainly someone who doesn't have a health condition, they can train harder. But for someone who is suffering from something, be gentle with your body, and, listen to your body. If you're tired or you're aching, don't take the attitude of no pain, no gain.
Right.
Take care of it, take some rest, and change your exercise routine. The other one would be to, address nutrient deficiencies, especially when it comes to autoimmune conditions, making sure that you're getting regular blood work to make sure that your levels are within optimal range. Not always just normal range, according to some, but optimal range. And then managing your hormone imbalances, anything from thyroid to female or male hormones, very important as well.
Have you been thinking that it's time to join a gym membership, only that for your mindset? Have you been wanting to be a part of a community where your self-growth is what's being supported? Do you want to have a life coach in your back pocket, easy to reach at any given point? If you've been thinking that this is something for you, Reset Your Mindset might be exactly what you're looking for. It's my newest membership program where you have me on a regular basis answering your questions, where you will get monthly mindset trainings with some of my best tools and most recurring theme subjects in my coaching practice. You will also receive a work along workbook to move along, and you will have Zoom group calls with me to get your questions answered and to process some of those heavier emotions that you just don't know what to do about. If this sounds interesting to you, check out my website at www.olgasway.com and look for Reset Your Mindset membership program. I cannot wait to see you inside. You touch on all the things that I love talking about. Improving digestion. So what would be some like the red flags that my digestion needs help?
So the red flags in terms of symptoms would be heartburn, bloating, excess gas, diarrhea, constipation, canker sores in the mouth, fissures are a big one, anal fissures. They give us a little warning sign of something that can be going wrong. Those would be the big ones when it comes to digestion. That if those are going on, okay, let's look into this. Something is irritating your body. Your body either can't break it down, or it's allergic to it, or intolerant to it. So let's investigate.
And sleep. Oh my God, I love that one as your second recommendation. In my therapeutic world of the mind, we always ask our clients or patients, how are you sleeping? Because that directly tells us how their mind, their emotional well-being is doing. I don't think that any of us is foreign to the idea of going to bed and overthinking when stress is high, right? Like I think most of us lose sleep over the stressful moments of our lives. And so I personally cultivate very much so my sleep because I want to renew and like rest and restore. But I know personally there's times when that becomes really complicated. Trying to go to bed, your mind is like, oh, have you thought of this? And what about that? When I was pregnant, specifically, I had a lot of anxiety at nighttime, not throughout the day, but if I'll go to bed, when I'll go to bed, I used to say the monster was not in the closet. It was in my head and it was waiting for me to touch that pillow and then just show up and be like, what if, And I see this in my clients, not only hormone-induced anxiety, but simply just nighttime being a difficult moment for them. So how can we improve sleep? You said we talk about it a lot. I mean, I usually suggest meditation to my clients and gentle move and stretches before bedtime, sort of like to get the body ready for that. What are some of like your takes as a ND doctor? Like, what do you usually suggest to people to improve their sleep?
So yeah, definitely that sleep routine, to get everything out of your head that you have to do, just write it down, a little journal, write everything down, your plan for the next day. So it's on paper. You're not going to forget. You're not going to keep thinking about, am I going to forget? I don't want to forget. I have to do this. No technology, in the bedroom. Yeah, exactly. Some of the key nutrients that I'll have people do, if necessary, is like magnesium, a low dose melatonin if needed. And then there's some great herbs that can be used as well. I usually start people on a really mild tea. I like nighty night tea, just to see if that will do it for them. Drink a nice tea, start to wind down in the evening. And if that doesn't work, then we go more, we could use some herbal preparations that really help to relax the muscles and the nervous system, because it's that the nervous system is overactive. So we want to really calm it down. Because if the mind's going, well, then the body's going to follow. So, so there's some key herbs that I like to use, whether it be valerian, chamomile, catnip, which for humans will help sedate, but for cats, obviously will help excite them. Skullcap is another one I like. And I usually use them all in combination. But again, if people are on sleep medication or any sort of antidepressants, things like that, they need to consult with someone before taking any natural products to be on the safe side.
Yeah. And I would suggest this for everybody, actually. Mm-hmm. Some things might not respond well to you. I know I suggested to one of my clients way back then to buy magnesium because, that helps me sleep. And she had the adverse reaction. She was like, it wires me up. So, you never know how your body's going to respond. What works for most people might not work for your unique body. So like having somebody in your team who can answer to your questions and adjust to that is super key. And then I want to ask you about acupuncture. Yeah. I mean, I know what it does. I've been a patient myself of acupuncture clinics. Love it. Nothing has relaxed me as much other than my own work as acupuncture has done. What do you use it in your practice for? Why should people consider seeing an acupuncturist or going for an acupuncture treatment?
So I do a lot of pain management in my clinic. So I use acupuncture for that. It works great. For me, I usually like to see a change within 3 treatments. Which can be encouraging for someone who's dealing with chronic pain or even acute pain. But so I see for chronic pain, I see a lot of fertility patients. It can, studies have shown that it has helped to increase the chances of successful pregnancy, whether they're trying on their own, doing IUI, IVF, whatnot. So, and then I also do it for relaxation. I see a lot of patients come in with anxiety. And because their mind is always going, they can't relax their body. Mm-hmm. And some can actually be very reluctant to take natural products as well. They're nervous about it. And so this is where acupuncture can come into play. Your mind could still be going, but the acupuncture will relax your body. Mm-hmm. It will release endorphins, which relax the nervous system. So no matter what, it will definitely help. Help ease the symptoms associated with anxiety.
I can definitely speak to that. I mean, the first time I came into contact with acupuncture was after a car accident, and it got rid of the chronic headaches I was having due to injuring my neck and back. And I was sold. I'm like, what happened? Like, these took away what Tylenol and Advil couldn't. And later in my fertility journey, I did it. And I honestly did it because it relaxed me. It relaxed my body. And it was like I would crave that hour. It was a full hour, back and front. And I felt so relaxed, something that my mind had a difficult time doing while under the influence of hormones. And so that was a great compliment for my daily practice of meditation, which I highly, highly recommend people to do, and to understand again, like your body, all you can do is offer your body different solutions and see what takes, what does your body actually like. Now, there's people terrified of needles. I talk to them on a regular basis. What do you have to say to them on that fear of needles? Because they are tiny little needles going into your body. Although I have to say, it doesn't hurt nearly as much as getting a tattooed on, not even close for that matter, or getting pinched by somebody. But what do you usually tell people who have this fear?
So yeah, I have seen people who do have a fear of needles who still wanted to pursue acupuncture. I have different gauges of needles. So some that are actually very thin. So those are usually the ones that I'll use on these patients. There's also acupressure people can use. So almost just putting pressure at that on that acupuncture point location could still bring some relief. Usually I have them not look at the needles, and if they're not, they usually, like you said, don't feel it too much going in. And the needle should never feel electrical feeling or very painful. Usually the sensation is a bit of a pressure. Some can feel a little kind of burn sensation, but then it dissipates. So it should always dissipate. And honestly, if they're really, really anxious, I usually don't recommend it, in the sense that it's going to I wouldn't want it to cause more anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
So then I will suggest they could go for something called Tuina, which is a Chinese medicine massage, like a Chinese massage, which will touch on all their meridians. So that's also something that they can do.
Amazing. So who should really be thinking about acupuncture right now? Somebody who's going through what, other than the fertility example we just gave, like who should be thinking about this? Oh, people in pain, I guess you said.
Yeah, people in pain, people who are looking for solutions to manage their stress. They're looking for something that they haven't tried before, maybe, or just something where they can even go in. I see some people come in once a month. It's their self-care time to just decompress, and it's just part of their toolbox. So they'll come in for that on a regular basis, and it really helps to rebalance them.
I think from all the things I did during my treatments of fertility, that was my favorite, because I would actually fall asleep. I can't say that about any other intervention that they were doing while I was trying to conceive. But that acupuncture was definitely a very relaxing place for me to go through. Even though, let me tell you, through infertility, you get to see a lot of needles going in and out of your body. And it felt like that was more needles. But in this particular case, that was so relaxing. Like, I don't know, it was almost like an out-of-body experience, in the sense that I could tell my mind was still going. I still had like stress, but it wasn't grabbing me, like that's how I can best describe it. This was going on, but somehow I was sort of like immune to getting involved in that mental stress, which honestly, I think if you're under stress right now, it is worth exploring, doing something different that you've never done.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Let's talk about mental health. You've helped a lot of my clients who have either severe anxiety or depression, or an overall lack of motivation, not feeling well. They're coming to see me because they just feel lost in life, mental cloudiness. I take care of their mindset. I do what I do best, which is just getting their mental blocks and, teaching them to rewire their mind and think differently. But when they go to see you, I see like this massive, it's just like we fast forward their progress. And now you're telling me they see you once and then 6 weeks later. So what do you see happening? What connection do you see? Because I see it clearly as I've experienced it with my clients. But what are your thoughts between that connection of mental health and just body functioning? Like people may have inflammation and not notice it's having an impact in their mood. I see it and I'm like, you need to see a naturopathic doctor, and I've got the right person. go. You need to be on supplements of some kind. um,
So often we'll see some will actually have a nutrient deficiency. So having low vitamin D, low iron, low B12 can all affect mood. So we definitely need to make sure that those are all optimal. If they are not, then usually I'll supplement someone on these nutrients, and then we'll try and get more through the diet as well. Then we'll say, okay, well, why aren't you absorbing these nutrients in the first place? What are you eating that's preventing you from, absorbing all this? So, for instance, someone who has a heavy, is very heavy on the dairy products. So we know that calcium and iron compete for absorption. So often calcium will win. So if calcium is being absorbed instead of iron, well, you won't be absorbing your iron properly. And then also, if you're consuming too much of a food that, you're intolerant to, then you're not going to absorb any nutrients very well. And then it's going to create inflammation. And again, will affect your mood. Also, the gut is known as the second brain. So we have a lot of serotonin receptors in our gut. So oftentimes when our body wants serotonin fast, it wants carbs and it wants sugar. So if we feed that, it's like this negative loop, right? Sugar is not nutritious at all. Too many carbs aren't as either. So it's about finding things that will increase our serotonin levels naturally, whether that's through certain foods or like high dose omega-3s. Exercise at least 4 times a week can help increase serotonin as well.
I find that my clients are all excited to take care of their physical health. And when it comes to mental health, they shy away from this. Like, we don't even see it as health, part of our health, period. Mm-hmm. And 2, many of my clients don't see the connection between food or lack of nutrients in their body and their mental health, and how, how connected we are. Like, if you're under stress, of course, that affects your mind. We all know that one. But if you drink alcohol, you might feel depressed the next morning. And that's because alcohol has like this type of, effect on our, in our body. And again, like when I see my clients seeing you, I see that the mental health aspect goes faster. Like their healing, their improvement, their connections go faster. They make a body-mind connection, which we have heard for so long. Mind and body connect. But what does that actually look like? And what does it do to you? Like, how do you notice what?
Right. And all you have people, have a chart. So a chart for, let's say, there's, that has their sleep, their exercise, their diet, and they almost check things off. And if they can do it consistently, they will see the change. And if they forget one day, then they actually can see, oh, I didn't do this and that. And you know what? I'm having a bit more trouble today. I'm sluggish. I just feel kind of down. So they see the importance of eating regular meals, drinking enough water, going to sleep at a good time, avoiding any, recreational drugs, smoking, excess alcohol. All these things will impact our, mental health for sure. And our connection to people too. Some people feel very isolated. So finding different ways that you can connect with people is very important too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main ingredients to healthy mental health. Mm-hmm. So I really want to speak about this briefly, because it's probably in people's mind. I know it's been in my mind quite a bit. COVID. Oh, hi, COVID. You exist. And so there's people with autoimmune disease, and we are maybe a little bit more high risk because our body is constantly, battling something. But also there's a regular human being like, my husband and my son, who just like are going about their days. What should we be prioritizing to improve our overall, wellness, so that our immune system is strong? I know I'm taking vitamin D, like it's going out of style. Like, this is my full-time job, is to take my vitamin D, because of the research that has shown people with the worst cases of COVID were low on vitamin D. And I'm prone to that, given that I'm from the South and I, live in North America. So vitamin D, definitely my multivitamins. What else? And I am moving every day, and I'm happy and proud. This is new to me. Other than yoga, I was not moving really all that much. And not that I'm minimizing yoga. Yoga is great. But when I stopped teaching, I sort of stopped moving with it. So what are some of the things that we should be really looking into to stay strong? Because we may have to face the reality of contracting COVID. And so how can we best prepare our body to go through that potentially with what we know, with the least amount of long-term?
So again, we have to always look back to the foundation of health, which is what we're eating. Keeping the processed foods at a minimum or out altogether. Limiting the amount of sugar that we're eating as well. Sugar will deplete the immune system, and will also change the gut microbia. So we want to make sure that our immune system in our gut is healthy. Also sleep will help us recuperate. And that is very important. Keeping our stress managing our stress, stress is always there. So managing our stress will be important as well. And, there are certain nutrients, like you're taking vitamin D, some will do probiotics, some will go on immune herbs. When it comes to autoimmune conditions, though, I usually tell people to be very careful. It all depends where they are at in the management of their condition, because it could exacerbate their condition. So, again, a very healthy diet, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, lean, healthy meats, healthy fats. Those should all be the basis of the diet. Not grains and dairy all the time. Those should be, in moderation or very much limited usually. So that's, right now, in terms of, we know certain things that are good for common colds and flus, but when it comes to COVID, we don't know. So, how to treat it. So basically all you can do is do the basics of keeping yourself healthy with what you've done potentially in the past, certain your vitamin C, getting it through fruits and vegetables as much as possible. And if you need to supplement, then you can do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we're all trying to not get sick, but that's everybody's dream, obviously, but we are in the middle of a pandemic. And I think that even having the mindset that we're ready and that we're doing our best to give our body the resources to fight anything is what comes to mind for me anyways. And I am I love to hear you say no grains. So I say in this house, we rarely eat any grains because of my condition, and my body doesn't like anything that looks similar to gluten or wheat. Like, I just react to most grains. So we in my family have naturally walk away from grains. Why is it that you'd say, though, no grains? Like, why is it that grains are problematic for the regular population?
Not necessarily for the regular population, mostly for people with autoimmune conditions. Because there's certain protein sequences in grains that confuse the immune system. So if you have an autoimmune condition, your immune system is already confused. It's hypervigilant, it's overreacting. And so when you eat this particular food, like a grain of some sort, then your immune system will zone in on that protein sequence and cause more inflammation, cause your body to create more antibodies against certain tissues. So we want to avoid that. So the only way you can have control over it is by working on your diet and limiting those foods that have those protein sequences that trigger the immune system. So that's why for people with autoimmune conditions, I often put them on a paleo style diet to begin. And some I even go AIP, so autoimmune protocol, with them, which is a lot more strict if we're having a lot of trouble managing their condition. But grains for the regular population that have no health issues, not a problem. Just I guess what I mean is, like, if you're eating cereal in the morning and then a sandwich for lunch and then pasta for dinner, it's not, it shouldn't be the main ingredient. I like to see more fruits and vegetables and good proteins. And then, okay, if you want a little side of a grain, a quarter cup to half a cup of rice, fine. But most people load up their plate with rice and then they put just a bit on top, so it should be the opposite.
Yeah. Yes, I've benefited from eating this way for sure. And I mean, what I've seen with my husband, for example, who doesn't have an autoimmune, is that he's responding really well to whole foods anyways, right? Like, we're just eating less processed foods. So that has definitely a huge impact in how we feel, energy levels, like mental clarity. Like, people, like, I wish, if you're listening to this, just notice how you feel mentally after you eat food. Like, I want you to make that connection of body and food, because it has an impact on how you feel. One last question, I'll let you go with this one. A lot of my clients, when they first come to see me, they lack motivation, or at least they will say that they're lacking motivation. It's occurred to me that maybe they are low in something. When people say they lack motivation, like they know they want to do something and they just lack the energy or like the drive to do it. Could it be that they're low in some kind of mineral or some nutritional aspect of their bodies, not they're meeting them at their mental, desire?
Absolutely. I often see this with iron deficiency. And even after we identify that it's iron, some people even have trouble taking their iron. They are not even motivated to take their iron. So absolutely, that's it. I find it especially with iron. Out of all the vitamins and minerals, the lack of motivation comes from there. The exhaustion is just so intense. Mm-hmm. But you could see it with B12 and vitamin D as well, but just maybe not as heightened. Yeah.
So I wanted to leave the audience with that thinking, because sometimes we blame. We're so easy to blame ourselves. I'm lazy, but maybe, just maybe, there is something not quite optimally in your body, such as iron or B12 or D, that is causing some of the symptoms that you have now interpreted as, you and your mind only problem, where it might be the body functioning. Right. So, Danika, I want to thank you for your time. I know I have an hour. I don't want to take more of your time. How people who are in Ottawa, how can they reach out to you? What is your absolutely favorite type of patient? Like, what do you find that treating these, I treated so successfully, like, who will be thinking, okay, Danika, I'm the perfect match to work with her?
So, I do like people who are, motivated to make a change. So people who experience fatigue and sense of, I guess, exhaustion. So, but also my, autoimmune patients they always intrigue me. They're like puzzles. So I enjoy trying to get to the root of these conditions. Chronic pain is a big one. I love treating chronic pain because I see such great success using acupuncture and also changing the diet and giving certain nutrients. So yeah, I'd say those are the patients that I enjoy the most. And people can contact me. They could go to my website, orleansnaturopath.com, or they could call the clinic as well. All the information is on the website, though. They can book online as well.
Amazing. So everything to contact Danika will be in the show notes as well. So you guys can just scroll down and you'll be able to click it straight into her website link. And then if listening to this has made you curious to find out more about getting yourself a naturopathic doctor as part of your team, I highly suggest it. Just having this conversation with Danika has made me want to go back and be like, oh yeah, how's my blood doing? Like, tell me what's happening. I find that interesting because it allows me to know where I'm at and like what's the gap, right? So you're working towards that holistic and optimal functioning. Mm-hmm. Danika, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you would like to share with the audience?
I think that people don't realize how much, their health is in their own hands too. There's some changes that they can make themselves at home. And if they do, one change per month, at the end of 6 months or even 12 months, they'll see how, far along they've come. Even if it's month 1, I'm going to drink more water. Great. Every day you focus on drinking more water. Then the next month you move on to something else. You can really make a big, big difference in the way that you feel. If some people are looking for some tips and stuff too, they could, on Instagram, sometimes I'll put some tips. So under Orleans Naturopath, so they can check it out there too. And also a book for for people suffering from autoimmune conditions. I like the Autoimmune Wellness Handbook by Mickey Trescott and Angie Alt. It's fabulous. So that's a great book for people to check out as well.
Thank you so much. I love that approach. Sometimes we think of change and it's like, what? And we think that we have to do it all at once. And I mean, as a mindfulness practitioner myself, I like the one thing at a time. You can only do one thing at once and do it really well. And I'd rather that you excel at that one thing. So that approach of making one change a month, that's totally sustainable and manageable. We need to stress ourselves out when we're trying to heal. That doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like go against what we're trying to accomplish. Well, Danika, thank you so much for your time. I really hope that this was informational at the very least for those of you listening, and that you do consider taking your health in your hands. Like Danika was saying, that we can advocate for ourselves just as much as we can show up and take the steps that we think are necessary for us to feel good. Please take it from somebody who got into chronic, inflammation, making that my normal. You don't have to make not feeling optimally well your normal. Like there is a way to feel better and to get answers to your questions. And if you're terrified of change, trust me, once you make a little bit of change and you feel better, it's going to be so worth it. You're going to feel that I should have done this sooner. Danika, thank you so much for your time. And I see you guys in our next episode. Thank you for listening.